If I would have watched this type of video at that time in my business when I needed to watch it, I wouldn't be recording this video right now. What I'm about to tell you will hopefully change your life the way it changed mine when I first learned about this. I remember in my business, there was a month I hit 25,000 euros. And I couldn't believe it. I remember once I hit this type of money, well, I was calculating all the numbers and I went to my partner and I said the number to him and I was like, oh my God, like, what is this? Like, I never came from money. I worked my butt off to make this money. And I remember just my partner was like, let's celebrate, let's go out, let's have dinner. And as we are on the way to a restaurant, I'm sitting in the car and my whole body starts to shake. My whole body starts to shake and I start to feel sick. I start to feel very confused because I was like, am I not supposed to be happy? Am I not supposed to be excited? But I didn't feel like this at all. And a couple of months later, not even a couple of months, I think it was 2 months, my income dropped by a lot and I was not able to get it back up there until I learned this one thing. Why my income dropped and why why my body was responding the way that it was is because at that moment, my body didn't feel safe to hold this amount of money. And I know it doesn't make a lot of sense because we think, we want that money, right? On a conscious level, I wanted that money and I wanted more, right? Like everyone tells you can make so much money, blah, blah, blah. So I knew that this was a huge milestone. But what happens is, especially when you grow up believing that there are certain, energies around money that are not always positive, right? A lot of us, we grow up believing money doesn't grow on trees, or, I grew up, there was always a lot of fighting around money. Money always felt like there was never enough. I always saved a lot of money. So there was a lot of me growing up believing money is not really safe. Talking about money is safe. Having a lot of money is not safe. It creates all these problems. And so in that moment, even though on a conscious level, I was crazy excited, my subconscious was coming through. My nervous system was like, hold on, this is not safe. And this is what your nervous system is going to do. Your nervous system will always want to keep you safe. Even though, when we think logically, it doesn't make sense. Why should my body not feel safe because I'm making 25,000 euros, okay? But in that moment, as I hit that number, my body went back all these years where I learned money is not safe. All of these things are not good. People with a lot of money are evil, all that kind of stuff. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, I was overwhelmed. And I didn't understand my nervous system actually needed to be regulated in this moment. I didn't understand I needed to teach myself and my nervous system that I was safe and that this money meant I was okay. Now, also why it dropped afterwards is because the way that I made this money was very unsustainable. I worked very, very, very hard. I don't know why I said worked twice, but I worked very hard. I grinded my butt off, and in that moment, as I hit that money, I was like, okay, what's next, right? In your business, you kind of thinking of what are the next things that you want to achieve? What are the next goals that you want to achieve? And so as I'm thinking of what's next, I'm like, physically, I cannot make more money than this because I already worked so hard to make this money. I cannot work harder. I cannot work more hours. I was already really exhausted at that time. I remember I wasn't even able to look at a screen anymore because my vision was so blurry because of all this work I was putting in. My nervous system was also like, well, this is not safe because a lot of money means we're exhausted, we're tired, we're getting sick. And so there was all these things that were coming up that was signaling my nervous system, this amount of money, not safe. Let's sabotage the shit out of Jess, okay? That's literally what happened. And so my income went down until I didn't learn how to regulate my nervous system. I wasn't able to get it back up. It was really important to learn to receive, to learn to be able to hold this money, and to teach myself that it wasn't through hard work only to make this money, but it was through aligning myself with myself and making sure that I felt safe with all those changes happening in my business and in my nervous system and in my body. I remember at that time when my money went down, right? I hit the 25,000 and then my money went down. I felt like I needed to work harder. And I was looking at strategy solutions, right? That's the first thing that I feel like a lot of people do. Oh, it's not working. Guess what I'm doing must be wrong. And so I was looking out for another solution, looking for another business coach, looking for, all these strategies, looking at all the people that are hitting effortless, like 50, 100K, months, whatever. I know this is a lot of money, right? I remember feeling like they must have a secret that I don't know about. They must know something I don't know. And in that moment, I was like, because they must know something I don't know, I'm gonna trust that they have the strategy that I need to apply to my business so that I grow again. Well, it didn't happen. It didn't happen because my body wasn't recovered yet from that shock. I know it sounds very crazy to think about that, but I see this so many people achieve high income and then they drop again and they can't break through the next income ceiling because their body doesn't feel safe. And there was a time before the 25K, I was constantly stuck at the same income level. And no matter how hard or how little I worked, I wasn't breaking through that either because I didn't know that it wasn't through more or better strategy. I already knew everything. I needed to change what was going on within myself. And so I want to give you a couple of examples of how this sabotage can happen in business, because ultimately, when your nervous system does not feel safe, you will unconsciously or even consciously do things that will sabotage you from hitting higher cash months or from making more money. The first thing that can happen is that you're procrastinating before a big launch. So let's say, for example, you're having this program that you want to launch and you really love it, but you're procrastinating. And you find reasons why you're not ready yet, or why it's not perfect yet, or why you shouldn't launch it yet. Another thing that can happen is that you suddenly feel very exhausted or tired or overwhelmed as well. Your nervous system is going to signal to you, hey, we're not safe, and it's going to literally make you feel tired, which is also very interesting because this is exactly what happened to me. Right after I hit the 25,000, I traveled. And I remember I was in New York at that time. And instead of enjoying my time in New York, I was sitting in my Airbnb for 3 weeks straight. I left maybe the Airbnb 3 times. I was sitting there because I was so tired. I was so exhausted. And it was because my nervous system was like, what the hell is going on? The other way that this can show up is through undercharging or giving discounts. And the other thing, and I was guilty of that too, is, for example, you make an income jump, you spend that money again. You find a way to spend that money. And this is what happened to me. I made that money, and instead of continuing doing what was working, I was looking for the next strategy, and I hired another coach, which was very expensive. And all that money I made went into that coach because I believed, well, she must have the secret strategy that's going to now help me jump to 50K months, which didn't happen because what I actually needed was staying with what I was doing and regulating myself instead. How to rewire your nervous system is by asking yourself, what is the highest amount of money that you've made consistently? This is where your nervous system feels safe. So let's say it's $5,000 a month, or it's $2,000 a month, or it's $10,000 a month. This is the average of where your body feels safe of receiving this type of money. And so this is your threshold, which is really important to understand that this is where you feel safe. And anything, the moment that you make more money than that, you have to regulate your nervous system to tell your body that you're safe and that nothing is gonna happen and that there is no danger, because in that moment your body thinks, oh my God, there's danger, something bad is gonna happen, right? So we gotta regulate ourselves. A couple of the things that you can do is, for example, EFT tapping. If you haven't done EFT tapping, this is something that I utilize, somatic practices, shaking, breath work. There are more things that you can do. I actually will be holding a masterclass on the wealthy nervous system, on how to double your income through regulating your nervous system. So if this is something that sounds interesting, you're actually gonna get real physical practices with me. It's not just going to be a lot of talking, but it's going to be physical practices. So there's going to be the link in the show notes for you to sign up as well. And then of course, what you got to do as well in order for you to regulate your nervous system is to shift your identity. It's understanding that wealthy people, they don't just make more money, they hold more. So there is some truth behind making more money and having more responsibility, for sure, because when you make more money, that could mean that you're impacting more people. That could mean that more people are buying your programs and are, loving your programs and are getting certain results or not getting certain results. Maybe your team is increasing as well. So there is a lot more capacity for you to increase here. And when you are not working with your identity to increase that capacity, what's going to happen is that you might make that money, but your identity still thinks that this is not who you are, and you're going to sabotage yourself again, right? So every time you hit a certain income level, start seeing yourself as the person who's able to hold more, to have a bigger capacity of holding a team or holding more clients or holding more money or holding more responsibility. Also, you have to understand that the version of you that is making, let's say, $50,000 a month is a different version of you that makes $5,000 a month. It starts with believing, first of all, that this is who you are, this is what you're doing, but also recognizing that the version that makes that type of money shows up differently as well. She has different priorities. She has stronger boundaries. She's no longer people pleasing. She takes care of her energy. She takes care of her body. She takes care of her health. She takes care of her mind. In order for you to reach that type of money and hold it, it's also a matter of shifting who you are being and showing up as the person that already makes that money. So when you make it, you are a match to that money, and not that you make it and you're not able to hold it because you've never been this type of person that is able to actually hold this money and make it again, right? Because what's the point of having a high cash month, which is great, but you want to maintain it and maybe grow it, right? And so in order for you to do that, there needs to be an identity shift within yourself too. And so, of course, lastly, to receive more, you have to teach your body to feel safe expanding. And so in that moment, when I was in the car and I was shaking and I was overwhelmed and I didn't know how to hold all of this money, what I actually needed to do was to regulate myself and to tell myself that I'm safe, that I'm able to hold this. Instead, I was suppressing this feeling. Instead, I didn't want to think about this. Instead, I was really like pushing it away and worried. I was worried. Of course, then I couldn't sleep and all of these things were coming up. What I needed to do instead is to hold that space, is to take that moment to integrate what just happened, to do somatic practices, to do tapping, to really regulate myself rather than suppressing the very thing that wanted to come through. And that's what I see a lot as well. And that's what we all do when something comes up that feels uncomfortable. Instead of suppressing it, your body wants you to feel this right now. Your body wants you to hold space for this. And so this is something that I should have done at that moment, that would have helped me regulate myself and not see this money as a bad thing and not feel unsafe because of this money. As I was saying before, if this is something that you would really like to explore further, I have this free masterclass come up, which is super exciting. There's going to be practices for you to learn how to regulate your nervous system, and this is going to help you double your income or even more, because ultimately there is no limit, but that should be the first thing for everyone to do. Instead of focusing on the next strategy or the next mindset hack, is really learning how to regulate and expand your nervous system for you to receive more. So I'd love to see you there. But with that being said, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know down below. I'm happy to do more similar videos on this topic, as I'm very passionate about this and it completely changed my life. Sending you so much love, and until the next time, bye-bye.